Baltimore and double will be this little preview of what I'm going to be getting when we get there for Super Bowl 52 and the Ray Lewis to Canton celebration. I'm also putting together a bus trip for that. But in the meantime, we are onward and upward as we lick our purple wounds. This guy here is a Ravens fan, but he is our Washington Capitals historian, blogger, insider, one-time stats man, and my friend for more than 3 decades now. We welcome Ed Frankovic back onto the program. Been a little while since we talked some Caps here, Eddie, and certainly an interesting evening on Tuesday night. I stayed up watching the Terps do their thing against Penn State and almost lose. Both teams were in jeopardy at one point. The Caps obviously blew a big lead, but then, when you have the best player on earth, and I know that could still be debated in Edmonton or Toronto or Pittsburgh or a variety of other places. Ovechkin was a difference maker on Tuesday. He doesn't win a lot of games anymore sort of single-handedly like he did in his early days, but he won one on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and you can argue about the best player on the planet for sure, but the greatest goal scorer, he's definitely the greatest goal scorer in the game right now, and his off-season conditioning we've talked about over and over, and it's just allowing him to do things that he couldn't do last year. He's a much better hockey player. The 4th goal, the game-tying goal, direct result of his ability to skate to the net and be able to handle the puck in his feet and just be in the right position with a little bit of a forecheck. And then the game winner, just a burst of speed at the end of a 91-second shift. 91 seconds at 3-on-3. That's a lot of time on the ice in a fast-paced stands of these 3-on-3 overtimes, and he came in and like a locomotive at the end of that shift as they blogged at WNST.net and just backed the Carolina defender off and he's so deceptive with his shot, and Cam Ward really, he never moved. He never saw the shot, and all of us didn't see it till it bounced off the net and out. That's how good he is. It was a huge win.
Well, the tying goal was also a giveaway that when you give the puck away in your defensive zone and number 8's the guy behind your defense, you're in deep doo-doo.
Yeah, and it was just an incredible backhander he put past Cam Ward. and that game, you talk about giveaway, that was that game on Tuesday night. It was giveaway central for both teams. I mean, they were both very sloppy, which was surprising because the Capitals had a couple days of practice. I know they were missing Matt Niskanen because he's out with another minor injury, and Nicholas Backstrom was playing sick, but old number 19, man, he had a heck of a game, and the Capitals they're stars. It was Backstrom, Ovechkin, and then Holtby and net, and they got some great support from the trenches early on from Chandler Stevenson setting up Alex Chason for a goal, and what a fine Chason's been, and Devontae Smith-Pelly scores a goal in the first period when the Capitals really were getting the game stuck to them. They were outshot 13-7, didn't look good, but they came out of that first frame with a 2-1 lead. So they're getting some production up and down the lineup. There's obviously concern areas, but they're going to have a little break here to work on that.
Ed Frankovic joining us here. He is our Caps historian and blogger. From a history perspective, walk me through the 3-on-3 overtime as you used to see it versus the game would just end versus then they would kiss your sister, then you play a whole period, then you play a 10-minute period, you play a 5-minute period. They've done so many things over 35 years of our friendship now, 34 years of our friendship, going back to 1984. I think I like this. I mean, you'd like to think that these adjustments, just watching college football, watching the playoff the other night, I don't know that that's the right way to settle a championship game. When I see, the golden goal and I see penalty kicks in soccer and World Cup and whatnot, I like playing the sport and I like it to be normal and I think the shootout thing's exciting and all. But the 3-on-3 thing's a real bastardization of the game, but it really is a test of your hockey team at some point after 60 minutes. If soccer would do that, just go 8-on-8 and let somebody score. You know what I mean? I think that would be much more of a test in the end than anything else, than a penalty shot or home run derby competition or whatever,
Yeah, and that was a heck of a football game between Georgia and Oklahoma. That was for sure, and we all needed that after the Ravens lost. But, yeah, I love the 3-on-3 nets. It used to be, you played 60 minutes and the game was over. Didn't matter if you tied. Then they added the 5-minute overtime back I think it was in the early 80s, and you played 5-on-5, and a lot of times nobody scored, and it still was a tie.
5 minutes is not a lot of hockey.
Yeah, and it wasn't until after the lockout in 2004 and 5 that they decided they were going to go 4-on-4 overtime, and if nobody won, then they would have the shootout. So that was better, but what happened was 4-on-4 really wasn't enough ice. It wasn't creating enough scoring chances. And coming out of this...
Well, it's defensible. 4-on-4 is a normal hockey scenario that everyone prepares for because it happens enough, you know. And certainly back in the old days when the coincidentals went off and you know, you would go 4-on-4 for 2 minutes instead of the way they've done it after fights and stuff in the modern era where it's 5-on-5.
Right, yeah. And one of the big things they did, Nats, also back in the day, if you got to overtime and you lost the game, you didn't get a point. You know, they didn't change that till the 2005 lockout because they wanted to encourage people to go for it. So what happened was overtime, you get some teams that were just happy to get their tie and just play for that. So they were trying to come up with ways to get people to try to win. And then what happened was a lot of games were just going to the shootout, and they didn't like that. So they were trying to, they said, okay, let's go 3-on-3. And I think it's been a boon for the game. I think it's great to watch. It's a lot of fun. It puts a premium on skating and skill. And, you know, the Capitals have been fortunate. They have a lot of skating and they have a lot of skill. So they thrived in this format, especially this year. They've won a few, and Ovechkin's had at least 2 game winners I can think of against Anaheim, and then on Tuesday night to Carolina. So the Capitals are going to go on a little break here. They're in first place in the Metropolitan Division. Some other teams have some games to catch up, but given where we were early on and all the rookies they have in the lineup with Christian Hughes and Madison Bowie and Jacob Verana and a bunch of new faces, you got to be very happy with where the Capitals are. And Coach Trotch and the staff have done an outstanding job. And I got to give Brian McClellan praise for listening to Trotz on some guys he likes. The Trotz was the guy who said, "Hey, look, I like Chason. I saw him in the Western Conference when I coached in Nashville. I saw him with Dallas. I saw the potential. I was hard on the guy early. Alan May's been hard on the guy early, but he has worked hard. He's improved his skating, and he is really contributing. He's got 7 goals, and this has been a heck of a find. And they needed guys like this to step up with all the salary cap issues they have when they gave the truckload of money to Kuznetsov and Orlov and Oshie, and that's why the team looks the way it is. They built up the middle, and they're hanging in, and they're still not playing the best they can. They're still making a lot of mistakes. There's still guys that need to play better. Kuznetsov has been awful for the last week or so. Burakovsky's scratched right now, so the rookies on D are making mistakes. Even Carlson made a mistake, but that's going to happen.
Ed Frankovic joining us here. He is our insider, blogger, writer, historian, friend. You can find him at Ed Frankovic on Twitter and, of course, at WNST.net. You can email him anytime if you love the Caps or find him out on Twitter. He's always conversing puck. Ed at WNST.net. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends Lee Tessier, Keller Williams American Premier Realty. They're up there in Abingdon, but they're servicing homes in Harford County, Baltimore County, anywhere in the Baltimore area. You find Lee, you list your home with him, you risk nothing at all. He's going to get your home sold. LeeTessier.com. That's Tessier. Also, our friends at Compass Point Golf. I know Eddie likes to get out on the links from time to time as well. It's been a little nipply out there right now, but they're going to fix that up when the weather gets better after this crazy period of 2018 gets away. They'll be down there for you, compasspointgolf.com. A close course, great course when it's not covered in snow and ice. I promise you. We'll get it together there. Robert Kennedy will be doing some college basketball with us in the coming days as well. We got plenty of college hoops, plenty of hockey. Ed Frankovic joining us here. Eddie, I guess from where the Capitals are right now, where these other teams are, to your point, and maybe my wife brought the best point up because she's been busy watching football, home repair shows, all that kind of stuff, and she settled in to watch the third period of the hockey game on Tuesday night after the Terps had won, held on. We're in a sports household around here, so this time of the year, it's no baseball for 3 more months, so this is what we're doing. She looked up, she's like, who's 29? Who's that guy? Who's that guy? And I'm like, I know you haven't watched a lot this year, but, Williams isn't here anymore, I mean, Mike Green doesn't live here anymore. It really is incredible how much turnaround there is, even in a franchise like the Caps, where a lot of these names, the Beagles and the Backstroms and the Carl, you know those guys. But, Madison Bowie and Chason, who you mentioned, Taylor Chorney, who has been around but not up a whole lot. DJOOS, pronounced Jews, but you see that D there and you say, who's that dude, right? Not to mention Smith, Pelly, Stevenson, Verana, who's also a new one fitting in. But there's a lot of new bodies here if you're just putting on hockey for the first time and you've been in the purple and the college football kingdom the last couple of months.
Yeah, it's a totally different team in terms of where the role players. You know, Marcus Johansson's gone. Justin Williams is gone, like you said. Kevin Shattenkirk's gone. Carl Osner, a mainstay on the blue line for years, is gone.
They miss Johansson the most, though, right? Would you say?
I would say, yeah. I would say Johansson's probably the biggest loss. Oh, and Nate Schmidt probably. Nate Schmidt's probably the biggest loss because they were hoping they were going to get him on the back end and keep him as their fourth defenseman, and
he was an improving guy. He was a guy that when you first saw him, you're like PU, and by the end, you're like, hey, he's come a long way, which is, that's part of the hockey thing is when you see Kuznetsov now, you remember what he looked like 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, and same thing with Burakovsky, and I've had to tell people all season long, you have to be patient with these guys. You have to be patient with the Christian Jews and the Madison Bowie. It doesn't happen overnight, Dmitry Orlov 2 years ago, you and I were talking about how poorly he was playing. The guy's a stud back there now. He's dominant on the back end. And Trotz, Trotz came out of the Caps organization. When you and I met in the 80s, what could you always say about the Capitals? They had great defensemen. Rod Langway, Scott Stevens, Kevin Hatcher, Al Iafrate, Calle Johansson, Sylvain Cote. You go on and on and on.
Larry Murphy.
Larry Murphy. Oh, man, that's a guy they never should have traded. You could go...
Sorry, it's instinctive. It's instinctive.
You could go on and on. There's the David Poile trademark. How to raise defensemen. Barry Trotz was a part of that. They went to Nashville. You look at the way that team was built with Shea Weber and Roman Josi and the guys they have there. Now, Ryan Ellis is a guy that Trotz helped develop into a stud defenseman. Nashville is built on the back end with a lot of good defensemen. That's David Poile's pedigree. That's the Barry Trotz's. And then they bring a guy in like Todd Reardon from Pittsburgh, who's done a great job with guys like Chris Letang up there in Pittsburgh, developing him. And now he's developed Matt Niskanen, and you can add Dmitry Orlov and Nate Schmidt, and now he's working on Christian Jews and Madison Bowie. So, Trotz knows D-men, and, it hurt to lose Nate Schmidt, no doubt about it. But the bonus was they got to keep Philip Grubauer, who's been very good in net, and goaltending is so important in this game. And they knew they had these young guys coming. They knew they had Hughes. They knew they had Bowie. They've got some guys in Hershey they still like, and Siegenthaler. More. So it's very important to have coaching that knows how to recognize and develop defensemen. And your wife's going to get to know that number 29 Christian Hughes guy pretty well because he's a heck of a player, especially in the offensive zone. Where he needs his work is in his own end, much like Schmidt, much like Orlov. And you just have to be patient with these guys. Same thing with Bowie. So it's a lot of fun. A lot of young guys, and by the way, I'm going to give that Compass Point course a plug. I play that every year in a tournament. I played it in October. It was in great shape. I love that track, so I hope people get out there and play that out there off of Route 100. Great golf.
Well, I'll hook you up with Kennedy over there. You guys can compare your clubs and do all that nerd stuff that you guys are doing while I'm, here doing social media, and I don't know what I do in my spare time, writing things that matter, I guess, at this point. Ed, anything you want to say on the end of the Ravens season? I just want to give you a chance to stretch it out here. You're our Caps guy, but long-time season ticket holder, going to the games, feeling the pain, lots of kids now. You've had your own surgical procedures that you're recuperating from here during the holidays, but I don't know that there's been anything tougher to watch than that ball going over the head of that kid Kennedy.
That was incredibly painful. Yes, it was a blow. It was a big blow to the franchise, and I hope it really wakes them up. And I think Luke hit the nail right on the head, and that's with his blog about.
Yeah, I saw you shared that too.
Yeah, I really think this. You have to look at the way the game is set up. The NFL is set up. The rules are so slanted for the offense. It's totally slanted for the offense, and I just agree. I agree totally with Luke. They haven't given Joe the pieces around him. I mean. They played so horribly in the first half, but then they got the offense going. I mean, look, you have Campanaro out there as like your go-to guy as a receiver, and Joe's moving the ball up and down the field, and they get the lead, and then they get the ball back with 6 minutes, and again, I think it's a philosophy, right? They want to try and take the air out of the ball, and, why not keep the rhythm? Why not, a Tom Brady or a Roethlisberger, the Steelers and the Patriots, they don't sit on the ball. They go and try and score to just put you out of the game, and I know they ran it, and they got it out with a couple good runs, but then they were like the old Colonel Mustard with the lead pipe in the conservatory there around the 40-yard line and just gave the ball back to Cincinnati. And just the league is set up where the offense has the advantage. So let's build an offense. I mean,
we got Marvin a 2-year extension, Eddie.
Yeah. I mean,
I hugged him on Saturday night at 11 o'clock. It was like the Last Supper. It's like the fourth time this has happened,
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think, Cincinnati, they love Marvin, right? They get a coach that can work with hardly anything.
Dude, you could do a lot worse than Marvin, right? And Indianapolis, you could do a lot worse than Chuck Pagano. I mean, you find that out. I mean, I said that the day they fired Billick. I'm like, I know Billick. Billick's a pretty good ball coach. I mean, you go fire him, and that's cool and all, and I thought he would go work elsewhere, and I actually had a long chat with him about that this week, and John Gruden coming back and all that. But, you could do a lot worse. You can make a mistake. You can throw, they're still trying to figure out, lots of coaches in lots of places once they throw them out. John Gruden coming back into Oakland. John Gruden was a 500 football coach the last 6 years in Tampa Bay. So, they're going to anoint him as the next chosen one. But, time will tell. Time will tell. I mean, Dick Vermeil came back and did it, but Jimmy Johnson sure didn't. Joe Gibbs didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that conversation you had with Bick was fantastic. I mean, everybody's got to go listen to that. I listened to that, and, it was interesting hearing Jimmy Johnson tell him, don't go back, And, Brian, I love Chuck Pagano. I love Marvin. I mean, if they had decided to part ways with John, and I think John's got a lot of changing that he needs to. I've been a hardball guy, but I think John needs to ease up, be a little less stubborn here, and let's focus a little more on the offense. Let's not be such a control freak, because we got issues. We got to get these fans back. We got to get the fans back behind this team. The best way to do it, I think, Ness, is to build an offense, make it fun to watch, and also let's do whatever we can to open up the Palace in the summer. Let's get that Westminster feel back, and let's get the fans back involved. And, back into this game, back into this team. I think the Ray Lewis Hall of Fame thing is a big thing that the city can rally around and hopefully maybe get things turned around. But to me, the biggest thing is let's build an offense around Joe. Joe Flacco has a killer arm. Did we throw deep? When do we throw deep this year? We
did a couple of times the other day, so I saw the waking up of that, and I thought, okay, the long ball, week 17.
Even when Billick didn't have a quarterback, how many times did Brian say, you got to go vertical to stretch the defense? You got to find a way to get some verticals in there, and that's what the Ravens need to do. They need to get a receiver that can throw too deep and just open up the field. And I'm hoping that Alex Lewis can come back, because, I think the Stanley and Lewis draft picks in the line are good ones in long term, but Lewis has got to get on the field to be able to play. And I know injuries are fluky. So, you have to have a line. You got to have some receivers. I think if you have a line of receivers, you can find a running back. They've proved that. Justin Forsett, Ray Rice. You get these guys like Collins. What a run he made on that 4th and 3. Now, you can always find a running back, is my theory. But you need linemen and you need receivers, and they just haven't done that since they won the Super Bowl.
Eddie, rest up, man. We got hockey ahead here as the week goes on. Ed will be following all things Capitals out at WNST.net, as well as at on his Twitter at Ed Frankovic. This week's schedule for the Capitals: Carolina win in overtime thanks to Alex Ovechkin. They don't play again until Sunday. A little downtime here, right? A little recovery time and a lot of home cooking over the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, they need this nest. Oshie just doesn't look right out there since he took that concussion against San Jose. He looks about a half a second off, and we don't know enough about head injuries. They're still studying the heck out of that in the medical facility. So he just doesn't look like the same player, and I'm as big an Oshie fan as there is. So I'd like to see him get right, because Kuznetsov's got to get back to playing a shoot-first mentality, because when he does that, that's when he was scoring his goals, and that's when this team really went on a major run, and they dominated play. So these couple of days off are going to be good, and Coach Trotz is going to work them at practice. Hopefully they get it cleaned up and keep the roll going.
All right, my brother, you may see me at the Vancouver Canucks game, because that's the kind of guy I am next Tuesday night. Dude, I can't make a schedule till the Ravens get eliminated. Now that the Ravens are eliminated, I can plan the rest of my life or, whatever. But, I had the barbecue on my fingers, on 4th and 12th, Eddie. From Kansas City. You know what I mean? Like, Luke had his bag packed. He had his Linus blanket packed. We were all ready to go, but instead it's hockey season and the off season. Always great to catch up with you, my brother.
My pleasure, Ness. I would have loved to have kept that thing going, and it was a real shot to the gut, if you will.
Instead, I'm like rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles now. It's weird,
It's hard. It's hard, Ness. That one hurt. Very hurt. At least Buffalo, you feel for them. They had been in since '99.
Oh, they're having a good time. Those miserable people up there. They'll lose this week, and the bad news, they got to go back to Buffalo. You know what I mean? Poor Tyrod. So let them. I don't know. We weren't going to win the Super Bowl anyway. We weren't good enough. So that's, at the end, that's how I rationalize it and say, well, they weren't good enough. We'll move on, and we'll get to 2018. Eddie, always good to have you, man.
Hey, anytime, Ness. Thanks, and we'll talk soon, buddy.
St. Louis Blues on Sunday, Vancouver next Tuesday, Carolina next Thursday after a 5-4 overtime win off the stick of Alex Ovechkin, the great 8. You can find me out on the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships directly to your email inbox each and every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness and planetfitness.com, where it's always $10 a month. Our best service is our text service. So if you're on that, if there's anything weird that happens with the Ravens, if they hire Chuck Pagano, if they don't, whatever happens, you get it first there. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday getting you ready for Wild Card Weekend. He's also watching the Terps and MMA and a whole bunch of other things. That's the SSV on WNST, by the way, 3 until 5 on Thursday, all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live right here on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNS TV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.